Howdy, and welcome back to my series on biblical history. I thought today that we would take a look at the uniting of Israel under its first monarchy while bringing new life to an old and familiar story, David and Goliath. So, we're going to kind of look at this a little bit at first from the Philistines' perspective. Troubling things are going on in Israel. Recently, the previously mostly disunited and kind of helter-skelter Israelites suddenly responded with new and dramatic united fashion under a new king named Saul. King Nahash of Ammon had moved out against one of the cities out in Gilead, which is on the other side of the Jordan. And instead of the normal give and take that you get on these situations, Saul cut up an animal and sent it throughout the land, and Israel gathered at his command. Not only did he drive back Nahash of Ammon, but then he turned around and took that army, and he hit the Philistines, not once, but twice, in their fortresses in the hill country. Now the Philistines have had it up to their tonsils with this guy Saul, and they're going to teach him a lesson. In the past, Israel has always been the weaker party. They get to push them around to a certain extent, and normally they're vassals of some sort when they're not trying to put off the yoke. So the Philistines are going to gather an army, and they're going to meet Saul in the valley of Elah. Now, here's the situation. Both sides are going to take their troops, and they're going to put them on opposing slopes as they face against each other. Now, while the Philistines may enjoy a number of advantages in combat, nobody wants to charge uphill at their opponents in battle, because that would give their opponent a huge advantage. First of all, the weapons that they use for range combat skirmishing are either slings or thrown weapons, and those all go much better downhill than uphill. If you're going uphill, it's very difficult to get any range with those sorts of things at all. Secondly, charging uphill, it makes you tired, and your opponent's got lots and lots of advantages against you in combat. So when both of the sides are facing against each other in the hill country on opposite sides of the hill, at Elah, as I said, then at this point, it's going to be a matter of trying to get the other guy to charge uphill at you. Either one would be very foolish to do so. Well, now, the Philistines are going to want to make Israel, if they're not going to actually be able to defeat them, they want them to feel defeated after all of this is over. So, if both sides just stand on their respective hillsides, they want the Philistines would like the Israelites to go home thinking that they lost the battle even if a battle didn't take place. So, how they do that is they have Goliath come out, and he begins to taunt them. Now, Israel has two choices. One, they can either do the dumb thing and charge uphill at the Philistines, or they can do the other dumb thing, which is come down and go into single combat with Goliath, which is going to get them killed. So they do nothing, because Goliath is 9 foot tall, and he's very scary, and he's covered in metal. And every time he comes out, day after day, he issues a challenge to them. And there's no question in the Israelites' mind that none of them want any of that. And so instead of thinking in their mind, oh, I'd like to have that combat, they're just scared to attack me. They know deep down inside that no, they're scared of them. And when they go home, they're going to be demoralized. And so Israel is demoralized, especially since their champion, King Saul, who's head and shoulders taller than everybody, is not showing up for this combat because nobody wants any of it. Enter David, the shepherd boy. Now, David is not a great warrior. He's a shepherd, but he's a man after God's own heart, and God is going to deliver through David. One of the mistakes that people have when they think about David as being the hero here is they think that David shows up and he's like, I will now take courage in the Lord as I face off against this great danger. That's not how it is at all. When David shows up, he's absolutely out of his mind. Angry. He's incensed. He wants to fight. Who is this pagan Philistine, and how dare he have the name of my God in his mouth? I'm going to shut his mouth. And this is fundamentally due to a different way that David looks at this situation. David sees the situation as it is, and not as it appears to everyone else. To everyone else, Goliath is a 9-foot tall giant covered in metal armor and a veteran of 1,000 battles, and nobody wants to fight him. David, on the other hand, understands that Yahweh, the God of the Israelites, can give victory to whomever he pleases. And what kind of fool would dare to taunt the armies of the living God? And so David comes in, and his reaction is, how come nobody's killed him yet? I could kill him. Now, when David goes to talk to Saul about this, Saul actually understands to a certain extent what's going on, because he has a son very like David who has won some battles with the help of the Lord. The Lord has fought for his son, and the Lord will fight for David. And so David heads on down. And another mistake we oftentimes get is that David is popping off piously. The shepherd boy comes out, and he could have been a youth. He doesn't have to be a little boy. In fact, he probably wasn't. And he comes out to face off against the giant with his sling and his stick, and you can understand Goliath's reaction, because here he's been disheartening the enemy troops, and the only hope is that somebody that's at least going to be moderately fun to kill will come out. And here comes a ruddy-cheeked little boy with his stick. And so, of course, he's incensed. Of course, he's going to say, fine, if you're going to send this little guy out to me, I'm going to kill him because he's pathetic, and I'm going to cut him up. And then David says that you come at me with a sword and a spear, but I come into you in the name of Yahweh, who gives the battle to who he chooses. And I am going to give the flesh of the armies of the Philistines to the birds of the air. Not just Goliath, but the flesh of the entire army of the Philistines. And what you have to understand is that David is not just piously popping off here. He is saying something incredibly frightening to the Philistines, because the Philistines, they know who Yahweh is. They may not be very clear on all of his attributes or anything, but they've heard about what he did to the Egyptians. They know what happened during the conquest of the land. Allow me to quickly read just a short passage for you. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, verses 5 through 9, it records a small section of what happened earlier during the time of Samuel. Recently, the Philistines had defeated Israel, and now the children of Israel had decided to go out and grab the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this wasn't Samuel yet. This was Samuel, still a little boy, and the evil high priest Eli, with the evil sons and did not take care of his sons, they're going to bring the Ark of the Covenant out to try to defeat the Philistines. So here's the scene. The children of Israel are coming out with the Ark of God, and the Philistines are going to hear about it. It says, and it happened that the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh came into the camp. All Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth was thrown into confusion. And the Philistines heard the noise of that shout and said, what does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean? Then they knew that the Ark of Yahweh had come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, God has come into the camp. And they said, woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us, who shall deliver us from the hands of those mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and become men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been slaves to you. Therefore become men and fight. And so the Philistines, they're not entirely clear on all the details of what happened to the Egyptians. And they think that they have more than one God, but they know one thing. They know that there is a God in Israel, and he is extremely scary. And one thing that's absolutely for certain, if a little shepherd boy comes forward, or a shepherd youth, or whatever you want to call him, comes forward and slays your 9-foot-tall giant who's coated in metal armor, then one thing is for certain, Yahweh is there. And if Yahweh is there, then there is nothing that the Philistines can do. That moral advantage that the Philistines wanted to cultivate is going to be completely reversed. And when Goliath hits the ground, it is not a shepherd boy that the Philistines are fleeing from. The Philistines are fleeing from Yahweh because they know he's present. They just saw proof positive, because there's no way that that shepherd just took out their champion if Yahweh wasn't there. And the next step is that Yahweh is going to get them and feed their flesh to the birds of the air. And so in supernatural awe and dread, the Philistines flee the battlefield from before Yahweh. See how adding your history and understanding these sorts of things can add a certain level of depth to a passage. Even a familiar one can take on some new meaning when you understand your history. Well, that's another one of my episodes. Thank you so much for watching the whole way. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I love to answer questions. And if you're interested in it, I would love to talk about it. Also, if you have any other ideas about things that I could tell you about biblical history, I'm always open to suggestions, because it's what you want to hear that I would like to talk about. Now, if you like biblical history, like I like biblical history, or even a fraction as much as I like biblical history, I have a book out called A Helpful Handbook of Hebrew History. And it's available on WisePath Books or Amazon.com, and the links are in the comments below. Now, I would recommend that you would read a book instead of listening to videos all the time, because as an educator, I know it's much better for your brain, especially if you're not an adult yet. If you're still a youth, your brain is better if you read. So I would recommend that you read that book.